I'm glad you confirmed that. So that's fantastic news. So in other words, someone who downloads CML, gets it for free, can run 5 devices, and it's the actual devices that they would encounter in the exam, right?
Correct, yep.
Hey everyone, it's David Bumble back with Justin from the CML team. Justin is one of the core developers of CML, and at Cisco Live, we hinted about something that's coming that's really, really cool. Justin, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
And big thanks to Cisco for sponsoring this video and also making education much more affordable and available for more people to change their lives. So Justin, you've got to tell people, what's this huge announcement that's going to change, I think, the lives of a lot of people?
So the big announcement is we finally have free tier.
That's brilliant. So in other words, I can download and run CML or Cisco Modeling Labs for free on my laptop as an example, right?
Correct. Without any license, just out of the box, you can install it and get up and running.
But are there any caveats or restrictions, or is it everything in the product?
Big limitation is you have 5 concurrent nodes that you can run, and it's single user only.
And is it any specific types of devices? Is it like IOL, or is it some iOS V? What kind of devices can I use?
So there's 2 files that you would use to get CML up and running. There is the OBA file, which contains CML itself, and then there's an ISO file, which contains the reference platforms. The free tier will give you access to IOL, a router version, their IOL XE, so a router version and a switch version. You also have the Linux Ubuntu nodes, and you also have ASAv.
Okay, hold on a minute. So I can get ASAv, so I can do firewalls, right? I've got IOL, which gives me a router and a switch. So I can build a whole bunch of topologies in CML for free, but limited to 5 devices, right?
Correct. And you can also, if you have access to other reference platforms, you can import those and run those as well. We just don't ship those with the free version.
So when you say a reference platform, what is that? What does that mean? Is that like an ISO that just has all the images of the devices?
A reference platform is a virtual representation of a physical device. So it would be a router, firewall, switch.
So in other words, I could, on the full version or the paid version, if you like, of CML, I could import other vendor devices as an example, or different types of PC type devices, right?
Correct. I mean, you can do that with the free version as well. We just don't ship with those. If you have the paid version, we ship with a broader set of reference platforms as part of that subscription.
Okay, so the limitations are it's limited to 5 concurrent devices. Does that include, is that just the routers and switches, or does that also include the Linux devices?
It's everything except for the external connector and unmanaged switches. Those 2 device types, you can have an unlimited amount.
I think this is fantastic for CCNA, right? So for CCNA, if I'm learning about Cisco devices, the huge advantage of CML is that these IOL devices, and perhaps you can give us more details about IOL, but just before we get there, this will allow me to build a topology to study for free for CCNA as an example with routers and switches.
Correct, yeah. You can get in there, you can build some smaller topologies, get familiar with things like DHCP or spanning tree, and just get familiar with the intro concepts to networking.
So what is IOL actually?
So IOL is it's a process-based application. So it's not a full virtual machine, but it's very, very lightweight. And what we ship with is a representation of the iOS XE. So think like CSR 1000V. So a representation of that. It doesn't do full packet forwarding as far as speed-wise, but it does allow you to do a majority of the commands that you would have on a real router or a real switch.
What I think is really amazing about this, in the CCNA exam, I believe, the devices that are used in the simulations are actually IOL type devices. So if someone's studying for the CCNA exam, I mean, this is having a real device that you're going to encounter in the exam.
Correct. It's exactly what's used inside the CCNA exam.
I'm glad you confirmed that. So that's fantastic news. So in other words, someone who downloads CML, gets it for free, can run 5 devices, and it's the actual devices that they would encounter in the exam, right?
Correct, yep.
That's fantastic news. So Justin, the big question obviously is, where do I get it? Can you give me some links that I can put in the video description or something that people can go and download it?
Yeah, I'll give you links in the description, but it's going to be available on Cisco website via guest access. So anybody that has a Cisco account can get in there and download the OBA and the reference platform.
That's huge, because in other words, I don't have to be working for a partner, right? If I'm a student, I could download this and start studying for free.
Correct, yeah. And one of the other nice things I want to mention is the software that you would be running as part of this free tier is the same software that you would have for the paid subscription. So if you do like the product, if you do want more than 5 nodes, you can simply buy a license and put that into the same software, and it'll upgrade to the personal edition or enterprise edition if you go that route.
Okay, so that's great. So in other words, I don't have to reinstall it, right? It's just simply a license that unlocks new features type thing.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, that's huge. So just for people who don't know, what is CML actually?
So Cisco Modeling Labs is a virtualization platform that allows you to run virtual representation of routers and switches. You're actually moving packets around. So that's one of the, important topics around CML is that you are getting familiar with the devices and you are moving packets between devices. And you can also move those packets to real devices in the real world. We have this concept of external connector. With that, you can link the virtual devices running inside of Cisco Modeling Labs with devices in the real world.
I mean, it's essentially a real device. It's just a virtualized device, right?
It's a real device. I mean, there are some limitations because you are doing stuff in software that's typically done in hardware. I mean, so certain features might not be available. For the most part, they are, but there's certain limitations that you'll run into depending on the platform around things like QoS or stuff that's very deep in the hardware of the virtual router or switch.
But I think from a studying point of view, if you want to learn the CLI, if you want to actually interact with real virtual devices, this is the platform to get.
Correct. And not just for studying. I mean, we have a lot of use cases for very large, Fortune 500 companies that are using this to replicate their real production networks. So if they want to push out a change, they can push it out into CML, validate that the change is correct and that they don't have any issues. And then after they validate that, they push it into production.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, there's 3 versions now of CML. Is that right? There's the free tier, there's the personal and enterprise. Is that correct?
There's technically a couple more. I mean, that's the high level, but there's 2 versions of personal. There's personal and personal plus. And then for enterprise, we also have the student teacher edition as well, or education edition.
That's fantastic. But I think for a lot of people watching, this is huge news because they can download this for free and run it and study. But also, I mean, you said packets, right? So I'm assuming the free tier also does Wireshark captures where you can actually capture the traffic on links.
Yeah, you can capture any link inside of CML. You can select it and run a packet capture and see those packets in real time, kind of a summary of those. But you can also download those in Wireshark if you want to do a full-on packet analysis.
So, I mean, I think we've been talking enough. I think it's huge news for everyone watching. But can you show us kind of like what it looks like? Perhaps share your desktop?
Okay. So for those users that are new to CML, this is the dashboard view. This is what you would see upon logging into CML for the first time. I have a couple of labs here that I've created, and you can either add a new lab or you can import an existing YAML file lab. If I click on this lab that I have running here, I have an IOL router, an IOL switch, and a couple of PCs. As far as the different node types, this is what you would see with the free tier that you would have installed by default. So we have external connector that gets you to the outside world. We have a ASAv, so firewall, IOL router, a couple of Linux nodes. So we have a desktop server, just a regular Ubuntu node. We have the IOL layer 2 switch, and then we have the unmanaged switch. And unmanaged switch is just a way to connect multiple devices into that, and then you can share that. So if I had multiple links, I could bring them into here. And this is essentially a hub, if you will. There's nothing you can configure on it.
Justin, I've seen this on other platforms that people have. You have to go through a bunch of hoops to get stuff working on XYZ platform, and I won't mention names. The advantage of CML, right, is it all comes with that reference platform stuff. So when you install it, all that stuff's ready to go, right? You don't have to try and download and import weird stuff or upload stuff. Is that correct?
Correct. And I'll also point out that you are entitled to use that as well. There's been a lot of misconception over the years, but yeah, not only do you get access to the images as far as them running inside of CML, but you have full entitlement from Cisco to use those images inside of Cisco Modeling Labs.
Yeah, I mean, so it's important that we highlight that. When you're legally allowed to use these images, where you use other people's platforms, that's it's not actually allowed by the license, correct?
Correct.
So that's really important to highlight. So I think from people who's studying, or people who are trying to set this up in bigger environments have got a paid license, you are buying the license to use the software. So you're not breaking any licensing issues or any problems or laws or whatever. You have the right to use it. So I'm glad you highlighted that. So sorry, I interrupted your flow. Go on.
So here we have a lab, router switch, couple of computers. If we wanted to do something like a packet capture, we can right click on a link. And then we have this pane view down here. And the pane view is how you get on consoles of devices. It's how you get to packet capture. It's how you would get to VNC for a graphical interface. There's also several other ways, which we won't go into the video, of getting on consoles. I can do a packet capture here. I can see some STP packets going in between the devices. I can see some ICMP packets. If you click on these, you can drill down in further detail if you want to really analyze the packets. And if you want to get the full-on Wireshark packet capture, you can click download, and that'll open in Wireshark on your local machine. If we want to get on a console device, we can right-click on a node. We can pull up console. We have access to the console. We can configure just like we would a normal device. If we want to do another device console, we can open that and we get on that device. If we want to do split screens, if we want to see both at the same time, we can add a new pane. And from there, we can see both up at the same time. Or if you want to see packet capture, you can do that. So this pane view is multi-tab per pane, and then you could add multiple panes. So you can kind of slice it up the way you want.
And I mean, if you just type like show run or something, that's just like you said, it's like a normal device, right? And what they're going to see in the exam. So question mark works, tab works. It's literally like a real device.
Correct. Yeah. So this would be identical to what you would see in the lab.
That's great.
From a user functionality perspective, configurations and everything would be different.
What about those PCs? Can you click on one of those? Is that just like a Linux device, right?
Yeah. So you can get either console or you can get BNC. So we have a graphical interface, probably a little bit hard to see on the video, but we can zoom in a little bit. And yeah, you can log into this and configure it just like a normal PC. To add a new device, we go to this add nodes pane up here. And this is a drag and drop menu, or there is actually a bulk option as well, which can add multiple devices at the same time. But for this demo, we'll show you dragging and dropping. So we drag, hold, let go where we want it on the canvas. And then if we want to add a link, we can right click on this node, add link, drag it into an existing node. We can see here that this is showing red because there's no more interfaces available on this. So we wouldn't be able to add it here. But if we add it into the switch, we can add that. And then if we want to start it, we can right click and hit start. Yeah, you saw there for a second. Let me see if I can do that again. Let me stop it. So if you have this icon, it means that it's been started in the past. If we start it, you'll see quickly that there was a little time icon. And I point that out because one of the nice things about Cisco Modeling Labs is it does make sure that the resources are available before starting nodes. Whenever you start a node, it goes into a queue system and makes sure that those resources are available. So you don't end up in a situation where it tries to start the node and then you run out of memory or run out of CPU and then the device fails. So we do try to do some intelligent starting of nodes. And then additionally, one nice thing is once you get a little bit deeper into Cisco Modeling Labs, you can see these check marks. And the check marks validates that the device is booted and running, which is important because once you start getting into APIs and automation and you get down that path, you can validate or ensure that the devices are running and ready to receive any type of commands. So you're not trying to shove a config at a device that is not ready to receive it. So that's an important distinction with Cisco Modeling Labs.
So show me, how do you set up a brand new lab? So do I just shut this one down and then it's like create a new lab?
Yeah, so I won't shut it down just to show you kind of the limitation, what happens if you do try to run more than 5, because we are running 5 nodes. And the limitation for free tier is 5 concurrent nodes. So if I start or if I add a new lab, I go back to the dashboard, I click add, I have this blank canvas. So from here, I can click up the add nodes, drag some nodes onto the canvas, and then I can there's multiple ways to start it. You can right click on them. You can go to lab, start lab, which will start all of the devices inside the lab. I'll go ahead and do that. So you'll see that it throws an error because we're already running 5 nodes. So that's the max licenses that are in use. So we'd have to go back to the dashboard and stop this existing lab. And now if we come in here and start the lab, they'll start.
It's an important distinction, right? It's not like you're limited to 5 devices in your entire CML setup, right? It's only 5 running at the same time.
Correct.
Yeah. I think it's important to highlight that because otherwise, there might be confusion that we're only allowed to have a topology of, well, in the whole system, only like 5 devices. But I mean, you can have unlimited devices, but only 5 booted up at the same time.
Yeah, and you could have as many labs as you want as well. So if you had like this could be a CCNA lab going over a spanning tree. This could be a CCNA lab going over something completely different. And you could have those. You can start this one, and when you're done and you want to switch to a different one, you could stop that one and then switch over to the other one and start that to play around with that lab.
So Justin, what happens if I want to upgrade? Yeah, let's say my company gives me a license. So they buy a license. Is like, what's the process to upgrade?
So you wouldn't have to upgrade the software. What you would do is you would get that license code and you would come into tools and licensing, and then you would choose the product configuration. So, by default, it does run in free tier, which is the 5 running devices. You would come in here and select the license that you have. You would save that, and then you would register and then type in your product registration token, and that would get you registered. Another thing worth pointing out is once your license expires, because typically, at least Personal Edition is registered on a 365-day basis. When that license does expire, in previous versions, it would stop working entirely. But now with the free tier, it will revert back to the free tier and give you those 5 nodes.
It means that it's not unusable like perhaps in the past. I can carry on doing labs, but just limited to 5 devices. That's great. So Justin, just for people who don't know, perhaps you can just walk us through the different licenses. You kind of mentioned them, But like I see there's multiple personal licenses. Yeah, what are the differences?
Yes, personal license gives you access to 20 nodes. And personal plus, this one here, that's 40 nodes. When you get into enterprise, it gives you node count based on the license level that you have. So that can extend up to 320 nodes currently. And then education is limited on a per user basis. So that one's unlimited nodes, but licensed on a per user basis. And enterprise also has additional features like LDAP support. So if you have like Active Directory, you can use that as a authentication store. That gives you clustering as well. So we can horizontally scale up to 8 compute nodes, and all that is done seamlessly. So you can have much larger labs running and have all the back-end connection between nodes and interfaces and links, all that done behind the scenes.
Personal licenses, you only have like one VM kind of thing. Is that right?
Personal is limited to one. Yeah, there's no clustering, and it is limited to one user as well, personal license. So you can't have multi-users logged in at the same time.
So Justin, this is fantastic news about the free version of CML, but I believe you've also got some other great news.
Yeah, so for this video, we're going to be giving away 10 personal licenses of Cisco Modeling Labs.
And that means that people that win those get access to additional devices, right? So they get iOS V, a whole bunch of other devices as well, right?
Correct. And they would be able to run up to 20 devices with that license.
So for everyone who's watching, use the link below to enter, and hopefully you'll win one of 10 licenses. Justin, this is fantastic, and I'm really glad that Cisco have done this. I know this is something that you and Ralph have been hoping to, have for a long time. So I'm really glad that this has happened. Just for everyone who's watching, please put your comments below, any questions that you have, and hopefully I can get Ralph or Justin to come back and talk, or I'll be able to answer those questions and perhaps create more content. Justin, any final words? Really want to thank you for sharing this.
No, thanks for having me.